Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Appreciate you stopping by, and if you're new to the channel, I appreciate you checking it out. What we got today is we have an encounter by a viewer. He sent me in his email. His name is Fred from Alaska, and this encounter is a pretty scary encounter. Wait till you guys hear this one. This happened to him on the Nuyahcook River, and it's, like I said, it's a pretty scary one. When I'm telling you guys the story, try to put yourselves in this situation and how would you react to this. Now, before I get into the story, I'm going to go ahead and show you this location. You guys know how I do it, so let me show you this location. And remember, this is in Alaska, so basically there's nothing around here for miles and miles and miles. Alright, so here's this location where this gentleman Fred from Alaska sent in his story. As you guys can see, there's Dillingham, and he's going to be mentioning that in the story. And the river that he follows wraps around here to the south and then around down through here. And he ends up in this location by the Wood-Tikchik State Park. I don't know the exact location, but by using other maps and other information that I found, I will go ahead and show you the location where I think it's the most feasible place where this happened, according to what he says, because he talks about a salmon counting tower. And I found a map where the government put out a map where they count the salmon on these rivers and things like that. So I'm going to go ahead and show that to you really quick. So there it is. There's that map. Now, he said it's right next to the state park. And I'll show you again using the map how close it is to the state park. Okay, so right here, according to these maps and according to what I could put together, is where this incident occurred. Right here in this, by the bend of the river, just west of this is where this is going to be. I believe that it's probably right here, using that map that the government put out about the salmon counting stations and how close the state park is to right here. So I believe it's right here by this bend in the river, where this other creek comes in right through here. Maybe a little bit further west down in this area right here. But that's where it is, ladies and gentlemen. This is where that encounter happened. And let's get to the story. How about it? Alright, now that I showed you that location, let's go ahead and dive into this story. My name is Fred. I'm of Alaskan native descent. This encounter happened in 2006 on the tributary of the Nuyahcook River. The Nuyahcook River is the largest tributary by volume on the upper Nuyahcook River. It is adjacent to the Wood-Tikchik State Park. The plan was a gold prospecting trip, and possibly stake a claim. It was me and an elder relative and his son going. My elder planned it for 2 years, and we were the help. I love adventure, and I wanted a black bear rug that year. We were 147 miles from Dillingham, Alaska. We traveled there via a 22-foot flat-bottom skiff and a 40-horsepower outboard. It took a couple days to get there. My elder had already mapped out the spot. It was an old salmon counting tower. The shack was on a cut bank and was 8 foot by 8 foot with a 50-style egg-shaped trailer attached to the back. The shack was approximately 20-ish miles west-northwest from where the Nuyahcook River meets the Nuyahcook River. We unloaded the skiff and we were settling into the shack. I was adjusting the rear sight of my new 12-gauge with a rifled barrel, and it had ghost ring sights. We were discussing our game plan for the next day and potential gold prospects. My two relatives were playing cribbage at a small card table. As we were discussing gold panning, it had gotten dark outside. As we were talking, the whole shack creaked like a strong wind gust hit it, but there was no wind blowing. We would easily be able to tell if the wind was blowing. The shack was a glorified cardboard box with a couple 18-inch by 24-inch windows. As I was looking at my younger relative like WTF, I saw a dark shape move outside the window. The look on my face caused my younger relative to jump up. He said that is not funny because he thought I was messing with him, but the air changed inside the shack. He grabbed the 30-06 and I was loading the 12-gauge. Initially, we thought bear. We were on a salmon river, so bears would be the most likely suspect. we had a spotlight with us, so we decided to spotlight and chase it off. We opened the door and beamed in front of us with nothing there. I panned left, and when the beam lit up the tree line approximately 50 yards away, we saw 3 sets of eye shine and got creepy chills and got inside again quickly. As we were talking about what the hell was that when my younger relative hit the ground fast. He was under the table terrified in a flash. He was gripping the .30-06 like a paddle. He had a death grip on the barrel. He was shaking uncontrollably and looking at the opposite window. My elder relative was in the bunk area, and we both looked over. Understand, this place is 8 foot by 8 foot with 5/8 inch plywood skin. I turned and made eye contact with a huge face in the window. It was ash gray, looked Native American around the eyes. The nose was pretty flat to the face and broad. The eyes were sunk in and big, and looked like black glass marbles with an amber eye shine. The hairy man blinked with his face starting to get a very angry glare. As it started moving out of view, I shot 3 times through the wall where I thought it was. Immediately, there was a very loud scream growl that rattled the shack, immediately followed by the whole shack being shoved a couple feet. My initial thought was, oh, they're going to push us into the river. Everything stopped right after the shack shifted. The quiet was creepy. Neither one of my relatives were responding to me. I felt all alone trying to overcome the primal fear. I had initially tried getting the .30-06 from my younger relative, but he had a death grip on the barrel, and I didn't want to accidentally shoot him. I put one of the chairs against the door and the other by the cubby. I sat on the one by the cubby to have a line of sight on windows and the door. The shack was permeated with an oppression in the air. It's hard to put into words, but it felt like we were food. I sat trembling and fighting off losing myself in fear. Time felt like it was standing still. Every movement was made like I was struggling to control my body. I'm not sure how much time had passed when my younger relative began communicating again. He was shaking uncontrollably and sputtering words at first. I got him calmed down after a few minutes. I asked him what he saw as I told him why I started shooting. He said it showed him its teeth and moved closer into the window. After he seemed to be himself again, I began planning an escape. We decided to spotlight out the windows and check things out. On the river side of the shack, there was nothing. When I beamed the tree line side where we saw the 3 sets of eye shine, there was nothing where we originally saw them. As I beamed back down the tree line side, the outhouse came into view. The outhouse was 8 foot by 8.5 foot tall. The outhouse was off the back corner of the shack about 40 feet. Behind it a little ways was a huge pitch black silhouette. The silhouette was so black it seemed like it absorbed the light. It was huge and hulking, every bit of 13 or 14 foot tall and 5.5 feet wide at the shoulders. To say we were freaking out would be a severe understatement. All lights were turned out and we tucked back into the bunk bed area. We were so scared our barrels were crossed and we were trembling and shaking. Everything was deafening silence and pressure. No movement was seen in the windows. It was very dark outside though, and we were not necessarily looking. After what seemed like hours, we calmed down enough to get planning for escape. We were talking quietly when in the near distance we heard something. It sounded like rotor wash from a helicopter. As it moved towards the shack, we could feel it in the ground. One of these things ran past the window and then chaos. It seemed like they were staged around us and all of them started running around the shack. It was white knuckle terror. We didn't know what to do. We could tell there were different sizes by the impact of their feet on the ground. During this time, there was weird noises, almost like they were smelling the trailer. I get the EBGBs whenever I think about it. The noises were varied, and I was so terrified I couldn't tell you what they were. I felt like we weren't going to make it. I came to terms with my imminent death. At that point, part of my fear went away, and I could focus again. Knowing you were about to die kind of frees you in a weird way. At this point, everything went dead quiet again. I quarterbacked our plan. The skiff was my younger relatives. With the sky getting lighter, our courage was growing. When we banked the skiff, we dragged the bowline and anchor over the bank, and it was stuck in the tundra. The bowline had 10 foot of chain, and the rest was rope, about 50 to 70 feet long. As we discussed it, something hit the side of the shack, sounded like a pellet gun shooting, then a hailstorm of the sound. After it stopped, I glanced out the window and saw they had thrown small rocks at the shack. I felt like they were trying to get us out of the shack. These things were more than big enough to have smashed this place. I felt like they were toying with us, almost like they were feeding on our fear, but that's just speculation. We didn't know exactly what to do now. Seemed like every time we were getting the courage to make a move, something terrifying happened. After we went quiet for a good 35 to 45 minutes, I checked for movement outside. It was light enough to see without the spotlight. There was no movement or sign of them. We stacked up on the door, and the plan was set. I would follow right behind him and cover him while he got to the skiff. I handed him my knife and reminded him to cut the rope. I told him to keep moving and don't shut down on me because I needed him to help. He assured me he was good, and I double-checked my ammo and whatnot. He had my 12 gauge, and I had the 30-06, and I would cover his dad while we escaped. My elder relative wasn't feeble, but not spry. We went out the door moving quickly and very motivated. My younger relative jumped down the bank and knelt down to help my elder get his footing on the slope. As I was standing back up, I scooted back a little bit from the edge as I did. When I got to full height, a big rock whizzed past my face. Immediately, my eyes locked onto the rock, and everything went slow motion. I watched the rock impact the river in about 3 feet of moving water. The rock impacted so hard it hit bottom very loudly before the water could close over the impact. My head instantly turned in the direction the rock came from. The pitch black dark silhouette was coming out of the tree line. I immediately put 3 shots on its center mass. The 30-06 rifle is a great round, but this thing didn't flinch. It seemed to glide almost when it moved out. When I shot it, it stopped moving forward. Everything in me screamed, "Run!" and I jumped down the bank. My younger relative didn't cut the rope. I yelled for my knife when I put the rifle down in the skiff. He threw me my knife, and I was yelling at him to idle down the outboard. It was idling too high to shift into reverse. I cut the line and noticed my shotgun on the riverbank. My relative threw it down. I don't know if he was making it available for his dad or what, but I was putting the chain in the skiff and shoved my elder in the skiff because he was trying to gingerly get in, and I just saw these things moving at the tree line. As I turned and was finishing getting the chain in the skiff, my relative shifted the outboard into reverse. His expression changed and eyes got huge. My elder had fell backwards in the skiff with the same reaction. They were looking at the riverbank behind me. All this happened in rapid succession, from me shooting and jumping down to him getting into gear. I looked over my shoulder as I pushed off the bank. I saw the black one standing over us on the bank above us. I didn't get a good look at the big one. My eyes were focused on its shin area. What stood out was the tips of the black hair were a cinnamon amber red color. It just stood there as we sputtered out of there. And that's the gist of the scariest night of my life. Fred in Alaska. Wow, so there you folks go. Imagine that. Imagine being in the middle of nowhere up on one of these remote rivers in Alaska, and these beasts coming into that shack that was basically, like he called it, a glorified cardboard box. And you knew that at any moment they could tear that shack down and get to you if they wanted to. So once again, that probably proves that these creatures just try to scare people to get them out of their territory. You know, they want to be left alone, and they just want people out of there. You know, I've read a lot of stories about things like this where these creatures chase these people until they're out of the area, until they reach their car or their boat or whatever they have to run to, and then the creatures turn away. Then that basically means that these creatures just want us to leave them alone. Get out of their forest, get out of their territory, let them live in peace. At least that's what it seems like to me. But once again, think about that. Put yourself in these gentlemen's situation. How would you guys have reacted to that? How scary of an event would that have been? I mean, good Lord, in the middle of nowhere like that, no help around, and it's just you, your older relative, and your younger relative with a couple tiny little guns going up against these huge creatures. I know I wouldn't want to be in that situation. That is for sure. If you guys liked the video, make sure you hit that like button for me. And if you're new to the channel, think about subscribing. No, don't think about subscribing. Hit that subscribe button for me. Doesn't cost anything. It's free. And I'm making a whole bunch of these videos. And for all the viewers out there that have their own encounters that they'd like me to make a video on, make sure you send it to WILLSTARBigfoot@AOL.com. And make sure when you send the encounter in, you give me location so I can go ahead and show this on Google Earth Maps. That makes the encounter way better, and that's how I like to do it on my channel. I like to show you these locations so you guys can picture this place in your mind as I'm telling you guys the story. Alright, that's where we're going to leave it. Before I go though, remember there's WILLSTAR merchandise out there, and I also have a Patreon trying to plan a trip to the Pacific Northwest pretty soon. So if you guys become Patreon members, that would be great. Alright, so that's where we're going to leave it. So make sure you guys hit that like button again and leave me comments, all kinds of comments. Let me know what you guys think about this encounter. And always remember, guys, where there is a WILLSTAR, there is definitely a way. And we will talk to you guys later. Take care.